So this goes over major and minor clauses. So major clauses are the main part of a sentence. Minor clauses are the less important part of a sentence. Okay, so let's look at that as an idea, okay? So major. Major actually means important, okay? So that's how we can remember that a major clause is the important part of the sentence. Okay, and you can remember this as well because without the major clause in a sentence, the sentence just doesn't make sense. Okay, so this is an example. The ape, a hairy jungle creature, climbed a tree. So, what do you think the major clause is? So the major clause is obviously the one that makes sense on its own, but more than that, the major clause is the bit about who's doing the action usually, and it usually also includes a verb. So, the ape climbed a tree. That is the major clause, okay? Because that makes sense on its own without the bit that isn't highlighted. So if we concentrate on only the pink bits, the ape climbed a tree. That makes sense, doesn't it? If we took that out, it would make perfect sense on its own, okay? It would be just simply telling us who did the action and what it did the action on. Okay, so the ape climbed the tree. It makes perfect sense. However, we don't have the detail we might want. Okay, so the detail is the best bit because it gives people the chance to imagine what's happening. Okay, so the detail here is a hairy jungle creature. The detail, if you just took that out, would that make sense? Just having a sentence, a hairy jungle creature with a capital letter and full stop on its own? No, that wouldn't make sense. It would have good punctuation, but it wouldn't make sense. So, that's why we have to call one of these a major and one of them the minor. The one that we can leave out is the minor clause. And the one that we need, which is this one, is the major clause. So just remember, major means important, and minor actually means kind of small or less important. Okay, so remember minor, it kind of means less important. It doesn't mean it's not important, it just means that without the major clause, the whole sentence won't make sense. So we need the major one, but we don't need the minor. It just makes it a lot better to read the sentence. So let's look at these examples that we've looked at before in another video. So the car, a rapid sports car, raced down the track. So in the other video I called this the detail. The green bit is called the detail. And the detail is also called the minor clause. So it's the minor bit, and the bit that isn't highlighted, so the bit I'm going to squiggle under, is the major clause. And it's telling us what is doing the action, what, and usually where it happens, and the action that it does. So it raced. So this is the action it does. So the detail is the bit between the two commas usually, and that's called the minor clause. And the part about what is doing the action and the action itself is the major clause. So the bit I've underlined is the major clause. So here again, this time it's underlined with the minor clause, and that's between these two commas at the beginning and end of there. So after galloping in a green field is the bit in the commas, and that is the bit that is the minor clause. So the minor clause is almost always inside the commas, okay? And the major clause is almost always on the outside, which is the horse was very hungry and thirsty. And that makes sense on its own without the middle bit. Now we have another example over here, which is much more complicated, okay? And that's because we have a comma at the end of the major clause. So the major clause is the bit I'm underlining. It's telling us who's doing the action, where it's happening. So the student was tired after the day at school. So that's telling us all the information we really need, and that makes it the major clause. And then we have this comma here. We have this comma. And that comma is separating the minor clause. So everything after that comma is the minor clause. And that is kind of complicated, but if we think about it, this is just detail again, isn't it? So the minor clause is always the detail added on. So a long, hard day of work is the detail added to that sentence. Now that's important because that detail makes it more imaginative, makes it better to understand for the reader. So it's really important, but it doesn't make sense on its own. Okay, so the minor clause cannot stand alone. You need the major clause with it.